Hi guys, so we're here today. Karl Morris, top mind coach, has popped up to the Pro Sport Academy to join me today just to catch up, and I thought it's a great opportunity to show you some of the stuff and that how Karl has influenced me massively over the last few years. Now, Karl, he's a top mind coach. He's worked with professional golfers from Louis Oosthuizen to Graham McDowell. He's worked with Michael Vaughan, and he's worked with England goalkeeper, Burnley goalkeeper Tom Heaton. So, Karl, thanks for coming up today.
Pleasure.
And one of the big things that you'll hear from myself, and I think it's happening a lot more now, is this concept of therapists just diving in and treating the first thing they see, especially in the objective assessment. Now, over the last, especially 3-4 years for myself, I've taken a step back, and what I'm doing in the mentorship is kind of teaching the therapists how to just take a step back. And I feel what we're seeing in the objective assessment is actually a reaction. Okay, so it's a reaction to how the body has organized itself. Now, to understand this reaction, we need to go back one step further into the subjective assessment. And the work of Karl has been absolutely influential on me. So instead of looking at the person's history, what I do now is I look at that person's story, because the main stressors to the body that's caused the reactions are found in the story. And the man that introduced me to this is Karl Morris himself. So Karl, could you just touch on the psychology of what a story means for somebody?
I think the most important thing there is that everybody who comes in to see you is basically carrying a story around with them, and a narrative. That it's like a script that they subconsciously follow. And the most powerful thing with the story is the concept of the word story, because subconsciously, when people hear the word story, there's a sense that it can be changed, it can alter, it can go in a different direction, you can write a new chapter. History tends to be, I found over the years, the words that we attach to certain things become, as you've understood, massively important. History tends to be a bit fixed. We take on that identity and it becomes very solid and hard to change. Whereas story is a much more fluid, much more dynamic approach. And my whole work in the past few years is everybody that comes to see me, I base it on the principle that I've got a unique story in front of me. But before I can do anything at all, I need to find out what that story is before I start jumping in with my stuff and my interpretations and what I think they need. Unless I understand that story, I can't make progress.
And that's the exact same thing as a therapist. We need to understand the story before we jump in with our treatment, and we need to understand or have some gauge of what the objective assessment is showing, because ultimately that's how the body has self-organized itself based on that patient's story. And that's exactly the same with this word intent, isn't it? Yeah. And if we look at movement, we've got an intent to move, but unless we have a clear intent, then the body needs to self-organize itself to get us to that point. And it's the exact same with some of the work that you've done. We've done a lot of this over the last 3-4 years with the Huddersfield Giants.
I think we found everything with it. We didn't realise it at the time, but we gelled nicely because we were both working down this path without understanding it really. And with the Giants was a great example of the story was of constant failure, and everybody bought into the idea of changing the story, and then they won the sort of league leaders for the first time in 80 years. But I think the great thing that I've found with your work, it just fits in so well with what I'm doing, and unless we understand this first dynamic, it really is very difficult to get people to move where they want to go. I know I've used the analogy that your body is like a sat-nav system, in the sense that it's a wonderful piece of kit. But if you just punch in Manchester, you're going to get somewhere near your destination, but you're not going to get where you want to go. If you punch in the postcode, now you've got very clear intent where you're trying to go. You have much more chance of doing that. And I think so many people in life, what they're doing is trying to avoid something. They're trying to avoid playing bad golf, or they're trying to avoid pain or whatever. Actually, the brain can't work with that very well. It needs, as you said, you found with your work, that give people a vision of where they can be, and the brain organises towards that.
Exactly. Whether that's movement or whether that's the very first session. And what I get, Karl, is a lot of people come into me with persistent pain. So I don't want to do this. I don't want to be in pain. And then what I say to them, and based on your work, is, well, what do you want? And until I know exactly what they want, and until that patient knows exactly what they want, then they're not going to know they've arrived. And I have a lot of like persistent pain patients, and especially one comes to mind where the guy, he's done so brilliant. He hasn't had pain in months, but there's still something not quite right, and a lot of it is he just doesn't know that he's got there. And I think a lot of that for me was on reflection. We didn't start with this understanding of having that clear intent of where you want to get to, but most importantly what that looks like, so you actually know when you arrive. Because going back to the postcode analogy, if I type in the postcode of this place, HD3 3XA, I still need to know which room I'm going, or which shop or which house it is. So we still need to be able to...
The clearer the intent, the better.
Yeah. We need to recognize when we've got there, and a lot of these patients don't recognize when they're actually there. So the work, and you give a real nice visualization drill, and I learned it on your Mind Factor course last year, which I'm actually speaking at. I'm delighted to be speaking at again on the Sunday this year. Was the whole having that good clear intent. And could you just talk a little bit about your Mind Factor course actually, and kind of the concepts? And 12 months on, as we meet again, I can reflect really how much me spending 3 days with you in a non-physio environment has massively improved my physio.
I think it's interesting, Dave, that I've found over the years of my learning experiences, that if I step out of my normal environment and go into something that's a little bit different, I probably learn far more because I'm not going with a fixed mindset.
Yeah.
The Mind Factor course, which is the 19th to the 21st of November in central Manchester, which is great. You can come along again. We've basically got a bunch of sort of like-minded individuals with coaches, some therapists, some physios, and the whole thing is about how you as an individual can change your own story, but then help other people change their story, and giving you the specific tools and techniques to do that. Because as we've talked about, if you as an individual can help people change their story, you become a very valuable individual. The word spreads, because there's a lot of people out there stuck with their story. Exactly. And so that we've got some other guest speakers. We've got Chris Walton there, who I know is some great work on changing beliefs, subconscious beliefs. But it's a very interactive 3 days, a lot of sort of discussion, progressive and interactive work. So it's great that you're going to be coming along again.
Yeah, no, I really enjoyed it last year, and as I said, you can see that your work, and you're going to talk in the mentorship, and the second webinar that I do when they come on the 12-month mentorship, it's all about the subjective assessment, and it's all about the story, and there's a GPS and there's a drill I use in that, and that is literally all down to you. So I want to thank you very much for giving me the tools on that, and helping me really refine my system, so that I can understand the true story, which can then give me the good tools to make effective but long-lasting changes with people. So I'm not just treating reactions and they feel better initially.
You're treating the whole system, aren't you, really?
Exactly.
In on particular.
And why our work overlaps is ultimately because we're both trying to understand how the brain is hardwired, and we're trying to understand how to get to where we want to be, and that's why it overlaps. And I think all facets should be overlapping at some point if we truly understand that.
It's such an exciting thing to bring all these things together, and then the end result you can see. What people can achieve. You mentioned Tom Heaton there. It's been incredible just to see. Started working about 4 years ago, and he was a guy who just signed for Burnley, and Burnley were favourites to get relegated from the Championship. And one of the things that he wanted to do was play Premiership football, play for England, and it seemed so far away at that point. Even I thought that's a bit pushing it a little bit, but he really bought into the idea of the story, how to actually specifically change the story on a daily basis. And it's great to see recently he made his England debut. So stories can change. We can get the story, we can get the life we want if we put the pieces in place.
Exactly, and I think there's a big piece of that we can use with persistent pain, but also with athletes with injuries. And they're here, they've got a 6-month rehab process in front of them. And again, my rehab intention masterclass on the mentorship, we use your processes, and what you've done with Tom Heaton, people are going to be able to learn that on the Mind Factor, the exact same techniques.
The same principles,
yeah. So that's great. So where can people find out more about you, Karl?
I think you're going to link, you're going to put on this there.
Yeah.
If they go to my website, which is www.themindfactor.com, you'll find all the details there.
Perfect.
So drop us an email, or drop Dave an email, and there's a couple of places still available. So
brilliant.
If anybody wants to come along, it'd be great to see you.
Yeah, no, I'm really looking forward to that again this year, and thanks for popping up to see me today.